Hi, welcome to the Splendid Sampler 2 Sew Along with me, Jenni Smith. This week's block is by lovely Pat Sloan. It's called Radio Waves. It's got a nice story about her podcast and that she runs that I listen to lots. And it's a quick block to do. It only took me about an hour or so. Key points are use spray starch if you have some, because a lot of these triangles you're working with are cut on the bias, and therefore they've got the tendency to go out of shape. And there's a few more tips as we go along.
It's definitely autumn here in the UK. Surrounding my studio there's all these gorgeous coloured leaves falling from the trees, so that's why I've gone for this palette for Pat's Radio Waves block. So first of all, you're cutting the red coloured strips. Obviously you can use any colours you like. They are just 1 inch by 12, and then they're sub-cut down actually once you've sewn these together into 4 2.5 inch blocks. So if you haven't quite got 12 inches, then 10 inches would actually be enough. You just have to be precise with your sewing and pressing. And then I've gone for this lighter colour in the centre. So kind of sticking with the colourway, but just going a bit more autumnal. I've got that nice deep green to be for the background and a pop of orange for the centre, Liberty's Orchard Garden. So 1/4 inch foot, 50 weight thread, and I'm going to machine the strips together. Once this is machined, you want to press the seams towards the darker, thinner strips, which I've done on both sides. You also need to ensure you give it a really good press on the front, because you want it to then measure 2.5 inches, so that when you cut along, subcut in 2.5 inches, you're creating squares. So if you need to go back in and just press on the right side to make sure it lays really nice and flat, then do that before cutting. So these are the D triangles here that you cut from the one big square, and I'm just showing you it like this. These are the sections how it comes together, and what you need to ensure when you're sewing this triangle onto the square units is that you keep the bottom edge flush here, so that the overlap, the excess fabric, is at the top. Then you're sewing these 3 together and repeating that here, and you're pressing these seams outwards towards the darker colour. Okay, so I have machined the longer triangles on, and I pressed the seams on the back of this one inwards and the other way outwards, so I could nest those seams to get this central unit here. And now what you're doing is just putting on these last 4 E triangles. So the best way to do that is to finger press halfway on here, and then to do the same to get your halfway point, so you can fold this to where the edges meet, seams meet, and finger press that in half. Open it back up. It's a bit hard to see on the darker fabric, but you can chalk it if you need to. And then you're bringing that point there, so you're going to have an overlap here again, but you're sewing across this seam now for that to open back. And you can finger press and pin all of them, because you don't have to do it in a certain order. They don't touch, impact on the next triangular corner. So I'm just going to fold and pin all of those like this, and then go to the machine and stitch the last 1/4 inch seams. I have just machined slowly, and I've put my stitch length up on these pieces here to 2.8 on my machine, and ensured there are plenty of pins, because when you're sewing across the bias on the long edge of the triangle there, it has got the tendency to shift. So I've ensured that my overlaps are even, that these points are coming centrally in the middle, and just taken my time, and now you can cut away any excess here. Just level those off before you give it a final press, and then trim it down to size. Otherwise they're going to just be laid underneath. The block just ends up slightly oversized, as it says in the instructions, so you can then go in and trim. And really my points of reference are that at 3.25 inch, because this finishes as a 6.5 inch block, so half of that measurement is 3.5. 3.25, sorry. I'm ensuring that my 3.25 line is on the tip of the central square here and here and here and here. So that's, and then I'm just going to take off any excess at the end. You can see the shape does slightly distort, and that's just again working on the bias, but once it's trimmed down it'll be nice and neat, and spray starch is always good on a block like this too.
So this is my finished Radio Waves block. Like I said at the beginning, pretty simple to sew up, not particularly time consuming, and just keeping those angles straight as you go, taking the time to finger press your halfway points. Using spray starch definitely helped me, and again I think it looks really pretty. I'm excited to go and try it at home now on my design wall with the other blocks that I've made.